Hello everyone, welcome to the Logos Project. This is your host Dom. In this episode, Sam and I talk a bit about sacraments and the nature of Christianity. I honestly, when I saw the picture of Doug Frissett that's right behind you,
how funny was that?
It was hilarious. So, for those of you who
just
don't
look so
know,
happy to be there, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So Doug Frissett is a character in the show The Good Place, and he's basically this random stoner who figured out 95%. Was it 95? Maybe 97,
96, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Let's say 97% of what happens after you die, according to the show. And so Sam thought, hey, Dom studies philosophy and theology, so he bought me the picture of Doug Frissett.
You're basically Doug Frissett. You're just getting it all sorted out, except no drugs.
Yeah, no drugs. Just booze,
whiskey.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to drink to be a good Catholic.
So I was talking to Phil about this.
Actually, communion. Holy cow! I just put all that together.
Well, you don't have to.
You do have to drink. You do have to drink.
A priest does actually.
Wait, for reals?
Yeah, the faithful don't have to. So that actually is interesting because in the species of the bread and the wine, the full Christ is present: body, soul, divinity, and humanity. Right. So body, soul, that means humanity. So that was kind of redundant, but his divinity too. Right. So the entire Christ is present in both elements. So if you have one element or both, right, either way, you're having the whole Christ. The reason why you would have both is for a symbolic reason, right? But not a substantial one.
It sounded
a little bit Protestant, right?
Kind of Protestant, right?
But because it's substantially Christ present, you only have to have one. You see how that works?
Why does the priest have to have both?
That's part of
because it's part of the liturgy.
Well, yeah, but it's a little more than that. Like in the sacraments, Aquinas would kind of explain this a little more. You have the matter and the form of the sacrament itself, and so the matter of the Eucharistic sacrament must have both species of bread and wine. That's the material for the sacrament. The form is the words of the priest. So it's not because the body of Christ and his divinity, right, his humanity and divinity, are fully present in both species that you can separate them and do what you want, because the sacrament, for it to be valid, requires both to be present. Does that make sense?
Both to be present, but you don't have to consume both.
That's right, yeah. But the priest does. So
because it's part of the liturgy, though.
That's right. Yeah. But the liturgy would be like basically the matter, not the matter. The elements of the liturgy is the matter. The form is like the structure of the liturgy, the words pronounced, and all that kind of stuff. I could be corrected on a few distinctions there.
Wait, so a priest can't take communion when he's like in sin, though, right?
Well, so he should go to confession before he says Mass.
Do you think they ever just like pull a Bill Clinton?
So,
you know what I'm saying? So
unfortunately, there are priests who, because maybe of a lack of faith, they don't believe what they're doing, which is horrendous. But I'm not going to judge them.
Eek.
Well, I mean, I am going to judge them. I don't know who they are. I won't judge people. I'll judge
that
character.
Yeah, that caricature of
there you go. That negative archetype. But anyway, so the thing about the sacrament is that.
What do you mean, those people? I'm just kidding.
But the thing about the sacrament is that the priest, if he is in sin, in the mortal sin, and we can get into that, and he does celebrate the sacrament, part of that celebration is consuming the Holy Eucharist. If he does that, he commits what we call a sacrilege, right? Which a regular layperson who receives communion in the state of sin also commits a sacrilege. Sacrilege is desecrating something sacred, right? Doesn't mean that the Mass is invalid, that the transubstantiation didn't take place. It just means that he's profaning what has taken place. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. But so when I said Bill Clinton, I meant the whole I didn't inhale. So they could just like go and pretend to sip it, and then not actually, and then they're good.
No, well,
wait. So, but if a priest. Well, if a priest executes like a marriage, right, and then they decide that the priest was not in good standing with the church at that time, couldn't that invalidate the marriage?
So that's a great question. Marriage is a little bit different because the marriage is not administered by the priest; it's administered by the spouses. So the spouses are the ones who administer the sacraments to each other. But with the Eucharist, it's the priest who
Why do you need a
administers.
priest?
So the priest is there as a witness of the church. Now, what that means is that the priest isn't the one administering the sacrament, but he is the necessary witness for the church's approval to say, yes, this is recognized by the church as a legit marriage. Does that make sense? Because if there's no priest, who's there to know that the spouses were fully consenting and present? It's kind of like the arbiter of, okay, we have a structure for this. Anybody could, I haven't seen the movie, but take the Hangover, for example. You wake up, you're like, oh crap, I'm married to this person, right? Like, that's not a valid marriage because there was no consent, no willful consent in your right mind. Does that make sense?
I mean, the last part does. I don't see how that applies to...
The way that applies is that spouses could be married outside of the Catholic Church and it would be a valid marriage, right? The role of the priest is to bear witness to that validity. So what that means, though, is that if you are a Catholic in the church and you get married outside of the church, it's not valid because you're not being fully authentic. And it needs to be an authentic gift of self in view of your Catholicity as a layperson. Does that make sense? So it's like a little bit of a lie, right? If you believe what the Catholic Church teaches about marriage and then you get married outside the Catholic Church, you're not being fully sincere about what it believes about marriage, which is the total gift of self as a sacrament recognized by the church. It's kind of like what we talked about earlier about Protestants and Catholics and the difference between the fullness of Christianity and whether they're still Christians or not. Of course, Protestants are still Christians, but they don't have the fullness of Christianity. So, but if they knew that the Catholic Church was true and they rejected it, then they wouldn't really be they wouldn't be Christian anymore in a certain sense, right? Because
they'd be Catholic.
No, they're rejecting the Catholic Church.
What I'm saying is, if you believe the Catholic Church is true, like you wouldn't reject it, right?
That's not true. No, some people...
It's not true, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people are like, yeah, this is true, but, they're angry at God or something. And I think you see a lot of this. But the point being, though, is that element adds something to the Catholic marriage, right? And that's the witness of the church. And so that's why the priest does require jurisdiction for the marriage to be valid. Because if it's a priest not in good standing with his bishop, then it's an outside of the church marriage for Catholics who believe in the church. So there's a contradiction there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you brought that full circle. Nice.
Yeah. So the point being is the spouses are the administrators of the sacrament, not the priest.
But it can still be annulled.
But because... If what?
If the priest is not in good standing with the church, because then technically it's not a Catholic marriage.
Exactly. But if you're
Even
outside
though that was
the church,
their full intention and consent, which is still kind of weird to me, but I guess it makes sense.
Yeah. If you're outside the church, you can still have a valid marriage. Yeah.
What do I have to do to officiate a wedding in Virginia?
What do you mean by officiate?
Well, I'm Protestant, so we could just pick whoever.
Oh, you mean, I'm about to marry these people. We're not Catholics, but we're Christian and Protestant Christians, and I want to, what is required for that marriage to be valid? Is that what you're saying?
So I've done several marriages, but apparently it's more. I'm joking. I got a wedding that I'm doing in December.
Okay.
And apparently the rules are a lot more complicated in Virginia.
Like Catholic rules?
Negative. I don't care about Catholic rules.
Yeah.
Yet.
No. So if we're talking about
Catholic ladies are listening, though, that's not true.
Yeah, if we're talking about two people, right, who are not Catholic, who want to get married, and they come together and they make the vow that they will marry this person till death do them part, and that they will give themselves fully to that person. They both do. They both make that vow, and they mean it. And they get married, then that's a valid marriage outside the church. It needs to be it needs to become licit. So the difference between valid and licit: valid means the act was accomplished. Licit is whether it was supposed to be accomplished or not. You see what I'm saying? So when, let's say, that couple decides to become Catholic, they need their marriage to become licit. It needs to be recognized by the church. Does that make sense?
Does that mean you get to celebrate 2 different anniversaries?
That's a good question. No, just one, because the marriage only happened once, but it's becoming now recognized by the church. It's no longer an illicit marriage, and conscience and knowledge, whether they knew about this or not, whether that plays a role in the entire situation. But if you become Catholic and you're already married, you need to get that marriage to be recognized by the church, which just means you're in good standing with the the church. I mean, one way I like to think about the church, and I got this from D.C. Schindler, who got it from Earl von Balthasar, which is that Christianity. Actually, I'll just ask you, what do you think Christianity is? It's a tough question.
So not a rhetorical question.
I don't think
you're asking me what?
Yeah, what do you think Christianity is? Yeah.
I think Christianity is I don't want to use the word religion, because that seems too easy, I guess, in this context. But it's it's basically a way of life in which you are looking to align yourself with Christ and His intention for your life.
Gotcha. So I hope you don't mind if I kind of like.
Well, I mean, that was a pretty Protestant answer.
Yeah, I think it was, but
which
that's normal.
I mean, it's not out of line with what I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I did it on purpose, Tom.
My problem with this, and I think you would nuance me out of what I'm saying, so bear with me. My problem with that is it sounds too much like a personal, private decision about how you see the world and how you align yourself to that meaning. But it's not necessarily a statement about the reality of everything of the world, right? Whether you believe it or not. Now, I know you would nuance that, right? But the way I would define Christianity would be that the way Balthasar does, which is it is a form. So, what's a form? Right, a form is what gives something its essence. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So we talked about this, before. So if Christianity is a form, it's the form of the church. And what is the church? The church is the world. It's the playing ground where all interactions take place. So, in other words, people think of like the secular world, where religion is a player in it, right? So there's separation between secular and religious. But instead, it's the world. Stop. I'll finish with this.
I didn't actually do it.
Okay.
Speaking of which, real quick, since we have a pause here.
Yeah.
Are you seeing the two different microphones appear in two different places on the screen?
You
should be able to separate them.
That's right.
So that's the beauty of the two microphone thing. That's like the most important piece, right? So if I'm breathing while you're talking, you could just cut it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing to add, did you know that, those big like sliders in movies when they're like, and scene, and they like,
or action. Yeah.
And then they clap it so that they can align the video with the audio.
Oh, I did not know that.
Make the clap line up, and then
Yeah, that's cool.
Hey, you're welcome.
Cool.
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to conclude on this because I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too much.
Yeah, all right, so Christianity is
a form
of
the church.
Of the church.
So the church includes Adam and Eve, right? But they fall from grace. So they kind of, there's an aspect of the world which basically doesn't live up to the reality of the good creation. And so you kind of have this division between the concupiscence of the world. So like basically 1 John 2:16 talks about the threefold concupiscence, and that is from the world and not from the Father. So you might say that's the kind of aspect that rejects the church, that rejects the full reality of the world. Like think of lust is always an easy example. When you look at a woman with lust, you're not looking at her in the sense where you fully see who she really is in all her subjectivity. You're diminishing her subjectivity and making her into a mere object. So what you're doing is when you look at the world that way, you're taking away from its full authenticity. Does that make sense? So that's what sin introduces into the world. And so what I'm saying is that the church is, Christ is basically like the center from which it emanates, but it goes back in time and forward in time. And what it does is it gives, it's the form of God's good creation as innocent, original innocence before the fall, and then as redeemed in Christ after the fall. So my point being is that you can't separate, the secular from the religious. The secular is part of the religious, and people try to separate it by reductively seeing the world in the way it actually is not. So what that means is that when I say Christianity is a form, it's basically the world as being redeemed, but it encompasses all of it. So therefore, Christianity is not merely a subjective opinion about how I should live my life and listening to this guru, this philosopher who lived 2,000 years ago.
He's a wise teacher.
Yeah. Jesus wasn't,
I will show you the way.
Yeah. So I'll conclude with that Christianity it's a reality. The way Schindler puts it, he says it's a real symbol.
I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he attaches the words. He doesn't separate
When
the
did
words.
Schindler live?
He's alive today.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When did Scott Hahn live? Just kidding.
But yeah, he's a great philosopher. I just started reading him.
Oh, okay. You hear the word philosopher, and you clearly
He's also a
I read
theologian.
modern theists and philosophers as well, but
Yeah.
you hear philosopher and you always think they're like this ancient person.
Yeah, like they lived 1,500
Especially
years
if it's
ago.
somebody I'm not familiar with. Yeah, I just assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually I'm
He
always
was
talking about the
knighted
dead
by,
ones. Yeah.
You know, whatever.
Speaking of which, there's a movie coming out that I'm hoping will be good. It could be trash, so I'm not endorsing it. But it's called The Green Knight.
The Green Knight.
Yeah, it
Why does
looks
that sound so
good.
familiar?
It's based off of the medieval tale. I think it's a British tale. It's connected to the tale of Sir Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and it's basically a tale about Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. I can't remember. I'm butchering it. The point being is you can look this up really easily on Google or on
Why
IMDb.
does that sound so familiar? I feel like there's a girl actually explaining this to me. Is it like a book? Sir Gawain and the Green
Yeah,
Knight?
it's a medieval tale. Let me look it up real quick. It's right here on my phone. So I don't know. It might be trash, but it looks good. It's a fantasy retelling of the medieval story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
That sounds intimately familiar. I don't know why.
Yeah. So Tolkien translated this tale, as far as I understand, and the director, being keenly aware of Tolkien's influence and the fact that he translated this, wanted to give it a Tolkien vibe. I don't know if he'll live up to that because it's not always easy.
I mean, everybody's going to be short.
What do you mean? Like the Hobbits? Is that what you mean?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a bad joke. I could do better, I swear. It's like 11 o'clock, though.
It is. I'll have to let you go. But
No,
yeah,
I want to keep talking. I forgot how much fun this is.
yeah. So what it does mean is that you'll have to come back sooner rather than later.
Dude, I'm the worst.
Yeah, I
Well,
will
like,
not
look.
deny nor confirm.
Look at what I helped create.
No, dude, I'm so grateful. This is so awesome. For the listeners, Sam built. I helped him a little bit, but he built my bookshelf where all my tomes sit.
I bought you microphones too, but you don't use them anymore, so whatever.
Yeah, I
man.
bought new
That
mic.
was
You know, I
cool.
probably didn't even need to buy the new mics, which
You mean? Well, so we couldn't get those ones to plug in though, right?
I bought like all these different adapters, but honestly, it was still a good call to get them because this is way more simple.
And they're nice. Yeah,
And-
dude, make it simple. Simple
Yeah,
as,
yeah, and the cord's not all over the place.
Kiss.
Look,
You
all
ever
those
heard that?
cords you see right there, they were all over the place, and now it's just one single straight cord.
Yeah, this is dope, dude.
Yeah,
And we could, I could do is, we could Velcro this to the side and get it out of your way.
exactly. Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you'd literally just have a mixed panel here, and you could just turn it up or down if you wanted, and then you have all your desk space back.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea.
Diggity dope.
And I have some Velcro. I mean, I don't know if I have the kind you're talking about, but yeah. So to bring it full circle, we randomly started talking about sacraments, then we talked about Christianity. Now we're talking about Sir Gawain,
Lancelot.
Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Yeah. So the point
Yeah.
being is that
Jefferson Davis.
sacramental theology is interesting, but it also ties in. So we talked about sacraments and we talk about Christianity. The way it ties in is that if Christianity is a real symbol, it means that it gives it's the form of reality in a certain sense, of redeemed reality. So it's not merely an opinion that is adhered to; it's a reality in which you could be incorporated through allegiance to the center of it, which is Jesus Christ. Does that make sense? And so the sacramental theology flows from that. Right? The sacraments are spiritual realities made present materially. And therefore what comes along with that is how that works. And that's where you get the theology of St. Thomas with matter and form.
Mm-hmm.
Who is it that officiates the sacraments, right? So the priest for the Eucharist and the spouses for marriage. But then, can you just do whatever you want and use sacraments however you want? No. So there's jurisdiction. And then you get into the way the church works and its Jewish roots. But we didn't get into that. But the point being is that's all connected to what Christianity is. And we want to move away from this kind of modern understanding of it being an opinion or a belief and move rather back into its understanding of it being the structure of reality in which we are incorporated. Because Paul says in Colossians that Christ will be all in all, which is literally what I'm getting at. Christ encompasses all of it, right? It's God becoming man, the cause becoming the effect and transforming it. So Christianity is at its deepest roots sacramental. And so that brought us to good storytelling, which I don't know how that relates, but that movie that we're going to go see. I'm trying to tie it together, but we got to go see it though when it comes out. I'll have to see when. I think it comes out end of July. Well, that was a good talk, Sam. Thank you for inaugurating this setup.
We have some freaking sound bites for you, no spots.